Let's get to 5 headlines. You know, as part of our Daily Wire audience, there are a number of ways to get to take in the podcast. You can listen on Apple Podcasts. You can go to Spotify. You can go to another podcast app. You can also watch our podcast on YouTube and Facebook over at dailywire.com. Bottom line, our content is available in a lot of places, and there's no excuse not to watch it. I mean, it personally offends me if you miss an episode, if you don't watch. It hurts me deeply on a personal level. And of course, needless to say, I am oppressed. Every person who does not watch this show is oppressing me. So I'm being oppressed by, billions of people. And now we're introducing a new upgraded experience, though. Daily Wire is now on Apple TV and Roku, so members can enjoy all of the visual elements on this podcast on your big screen, either live or on demand. Find the Daily Wire app on Apple TV or Roku and download today. Go to dailywire.com/Walsh. Use code WATCH at checkout to get 15% off your memberships. 15% off your membership deals. It's not gonna last long. So you got to go now, and you can watch Apple TV or Roku. All just more opportunities to avoid oppressing me. That's really the headline here. Okay, now number one, huge news here. Nancy Pelosi is the victim of a setup, a sting operation, a ruse. Probably the Russians are behind it. We can assume. There was some kind of vast conspiracy afoot, and the result of the conspiracy is that Nancy Pelosi got her hair done. As we discussed yesterday, Pelosi was caught, getting her hair done inside a San Francisco salon, which is illegal, according to the lockdown. The lockdown that she supports and has insisted upon. But she went in. Nobody else can, but she did. She went in and got a blowout. A blowout, which apparently I am told is the same thing as a blow dry. Now, why do we call it a blowout if it's just a blow dry? Why do you need to go to a salon and pay someone to use a hairdryer? Can't you do it yourself? These are all questions that still are left unanswered. And also, how is it that Nancy Pelosi even still has hair at the age of 732? There's a lot of mysteries here that are going on. But she went in nonetheless, and she got her hair done. Now, the assumption from a lot of people, no doubt many of them probably sexist, the assumption is that Nancy Pelosi did something wrong, by defying the lockdown orders, assuming that the laws didn't apply to her and so on. Well, she was asked about this during a press conference, and she explained that no. She is the real victim here. Listen.
I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times, and that when they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
I take responsibility for the fact that I am not responsible. I take responsibility for being a trusting, kind, faultless angel who was exploited by nefarious hairstylists who, in their free time, I have learned, just so you know, do in fact drown kittens for fun and cannibalize the elderly. I'm just lucky to have escaped with my life. And plus, my hair looks gorgeous, you have to admit. That's just to summarize what she just said there. In other words, she's, all joking aside, a horrible human being. I guess that's how we can conclude this. Let's go to number two. Checking in with the gaffe machine, Joe Biden. Here's his latest, what they're calling a quote-unquote gaffe. Listen.
Ahead of your trip to Kenosha, Wisconsin tomorrow, last week your running mate, Senator Harris, said that the officer who shot Jacob Blake, based on what she has seen, should be charged. Do you agree with her, and do you also believe the same for the officers who were involved in the death of Breonna Taylor?
I think we should let the judicial system work its way. I do think there's a minimum need to be charged, the officers, and as well as Breonna Taylor. And I might add, by the way, I think what happened in Portland, where one of the Trump guys riding along in vans inciting response is shooting rubber bullets, I guess, or paintballs. Apparently there was someone shot by someone in the crowd with a bullet killed. I think that person should meet the legal requirements that whatever that calls for. Should be investigated, and it should follow through on what needs to be done. Let the judicial system work. let's make sure justice is done.
So the gaffe is supposed to be that Joe Biden said Breonna Taylor needs to be charged. That's what he said there. But that's not really the point. The point is that Joe Biden is calling for charges of officers who, according to all of the evidence we have seen, acted appropriately to preserve the lives of innocent people, not just themselves, but the other people around, the kids in the car, that the knife-wielding, violent, accused domestic abuser and rapist was trying to get into to evade arrest. They also act to protect them. That's all the evidence we have. But Biden, because he's not a good person, and he's a coward and a fraud and a weak man, has no problem throwing the officers to the wolves to score points politically. I mean, think about this. This guy is 78 years old, at the tail end of his life, one way or another. Okay, 78. And this is what he wants his final chapter to be. Appeasing a violent mob, taking the side of criminals against cops, throwing innocent men to the wolves, all in pursuit of a position of power that he's barely conscious enough even to appreciate. Sad, pathetic, disgraceful. But, you know, all that aside, we did learn during the convention that he likes vanilla ice cream with sprinkles. So he's got that going for him, at least. Number 3, let's go to some uplifting and happy news today from the Daily Wire. A so-called Antifa commander who reportedly was armed dropped to the ground and began crying in the fetal position when law enforcement officers stopped him at a riot and placed him under arrest. This is something to lift our spirits a little bit. This is nice. Matthew Banta, 23, was arrested at a riot late last week after he allegedly ignored police commands and has been charged with 2 counts of felony bail jumping and 1 count of obstructing an officer. The Green Bay Press-Gazette reported, quote, the charges stem from a report about 9 p.m. Saturday that a whole bunch of white people with sticks, baseball bats, and helmets were headed towards the police who were trying to break up what they deemed an unlawful assembly in downtown Green Bay following a protest Saturday afternoon. And you could see the commander there, scary guy, very tough looking. This guy apparently is known for instigating violence all the time. He does that in between his shifts at the T-Mobile kiosk from the looks of it. Of course, I'm joking. There's no way he has a job. These losers don't have jobs. But it goes to show, you know, we call Antifa dangerous, and they are, only because huge crowds of people with weapons and guns and bats and no moral compass are always dangerous, right? No matter how pitiful and scrawny they are on an individual level. But that doesn't say that these people individually are tough. You know, you can give bats and guns to a bunch of 5-year-olds and they would be certainly a danger. Most of these Antifa brats individually are just scared, pitiful weaklings. And this is a game to them. All the cosplay conventions are shut down because of COVID. So this is what they're doing instead. And that's why it has to be made real. You arrest them, put them in prison on real charges, real prison time. And they could see this is not just a game. Okay, number 4. The congealed lump of semi-sentient oatmeal currently presiding as mayor of Portland, Ted Wheeler, is moving away from his $840,000 condo because it's been targeted so often by rioters. Remember, though, there's no violence. No problem in Portland. Everything's fine, says Wheeler as he speeds away in his moving van in the middle of the night. The story of Ted Wheeler is really a sad one. You know, first of all, as already discussed, at some point in his life, a witch put a curse on him and turned him into a lump of oatmeal. So that was his first tough break. And then he's elected mayor, and he does everything in his power to legitimize the rioters, provide cover for them, aid and abet them in their terrorism. He's doing everything he can for them, everything he can. Hands the city over to them and says, here you go, burn it to the ground. Do what you want. And they still hate him. They still hate him, even after all of that. And I'm sure he's thinking to himself, what else can I do for you people? And the answer is, it's never enough. Ted, that's the answer. Maybe you've seen that by now. Number 5, and in our most important story of the day, David Blaine floated away in a balloon and was never seen again. Actually, I'm not sure if that happened. I didn't watch. Did anybody watch? David Blaine did his balloon stunt yesterday. I feel like nobody watches. I didn't see anything about it online. Nobody was talking about it. The guy makes, he goes out in the middle of the desert with a balloon and floats away and just nobody cares or is watching. Somebody looks out their window and says, oh, is that David Blaine? Oh, well, all right. That gets back to what they were doing. They live streamed it. YouTube live streamed David Blaine floating on balloons, and it was like a 3-hour live stream. I mean, would anyone sit there for 3 hours and watch a guy floating on a balloon? I don't know. Now, they called this stunt Ascension. That's what they called it. And at first, when I heard that Blaine was going to do a stunt called Ascension, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be a trick where he flies and nobody can figure out how he's doing it. Something like that. It's really what I thought it would be. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. But then I learned, no, he's just floating with balloons. How is that? Why is that impressive? Humans have been floating on balloons since like the 1700s. The first hot air balloon flight was in the 1700s. This dude is 300 years late with this trick. Is he going to invent the wheel next? Is he going to ride down the street in a bicycle? Behold, as he rides his Huffy down the street. I don't know. I feel like this had to be the backup stunt. There must have been something else they wanted to do that was really cool, and they couldn't do it. And so at the last minute, they said, well, you could float with balloons. And they just decided to do that. But anyway, congrats to David Blaine for floating. I hope that he made it down safely. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.